Writing fractions as decimals. Write the following fractions as decimals. So we have 5 problems here, and you may notice we're given fractions and all of the denominators are powers of 10. So you may remember that another way to think of fractions is to think of them as division. So this is 345 thousandths. So let's divide 345 by 1,000 and see what the calculator gives us. So 345 divided by 1,000 gives us 0.345. So let's write that down. Okay. And now let's look for a pattern to see how these are connected. So we know that we said this as 345 thousandths, and we wrote the decimal and 345, so the last digit on the right ends in the thousandths place. Okay, so how is that connected? Well, notice the denominator, 1,000, has 3 zeros. Okay? And if we had started with the number 345, the decimal place, or decimal point, which we don't write with whole numbers, but we could write it to the right of the ones place right here. Okay. Now, comparing 345 decimal point to decimal point 345, notice to go from one to the other, from 345 to 0.345, we move the decimal 1, 2, 3 places to the left. Okay, so our result is 0.345. And this can be our strategy in general if you're dividing by a power of 10. You count the number of zeros in the denominator, you take the numerator, put the decimal point to the right of the whole number, and then you move the decimal point as many zeros as are in the denominator to the left. So let's try the next one. First, let's note that the denominator is 10, and that has 1 0. Now we'll start with the numerator, 62, and insert a decimal point to the right of 2. If we move it 1 place value to the left, our final result is 6.2. Looking at the next one, we have 245 hundredths. So the numerator is 245. 100 has 2 zeros. We'll put a decimal point to the right of 5 in 245 and move the decimal place 2 places to the left, which gives us 2.45. So just notice 200 has 2 whole hundreds in it. That's our 2. Then there's 45 hundredths left over, which is our 0.45. Let's look at the next one. Again, we have a denominator of 100, which has 2 zeros. We'll write our numerator, 1,126, with a decimal point. Move the decimal 2 places to the left, which gives us 11.26. And now for letter E, our denominator is 1,000, which has 3 zeros. Our numerator is 4,315. We'll insert the decimal point, and then we need to move it 3 places to the left, which gives us a result of 4.315. Let's look at the next problem. Now we're asked to write decimals as fractions, so the reverse direction. It says write the following decimals as fractions or mixed numbers and simplify your fraction. So we're going to use a similar strategy as the last problem, but in reverse. So here we have 4 tenths, and notice there is 1 digit to the right of the decimal point. So that means we're going to write the number 4 as our numerator, and our denominator is a 1 with however many digits are to the right of the decimal point, which is 1 0. So we have 4 over 10. And notice this corresponds to how we say this number 4/10. There's 4 in the tens place, but we're developing this general strategy here. Now we're asked to simplify the fraction. So just a quick reminder, tens prime factorization is 2 times 5. And if we have any power of 10 or any decimal place value, say 100, that would be 10 times 10, which is 2 times 2 times 5 times 5. Okay. So the good news is we know that all of our denominators are only going to have prime factors of 2 and 5. They could have combinations, but all we need to look for in the numerator is it divisible by 2 or 5 to simplify? Okay, and that's easy. If it's divisible by 2, then it's even. If it's divisible by 5, it ends in 5 or 0. So we don't have to worry about checking 3 or 7 or any of those numbers. So now let's take 4/10 and simplify. They're both even. So I'm going to divide the top by 2 and the bottom by 2, which gives us 2/5. Okay. Note we still have a 2 in the numerator, but we already factored out the 2 in the denominator. The numerator doesn't have a factor of 5, so this is completely simplified. Let's look at the next one. So this is 3.85, or 3 85/100ths, and we're going to write this as a mixed number because it has a whole number part, whereas this had 0 in the ones place. So we have 3 and 85/100. Now we need to simplify the fractional part. There's nothing really to do with the 3. We're just going to take this along for the ride. So I am noticing that 85, it's not even, so it's not divisible by 2, but it ends in 5, so it is divisible by 5. So to simplify, I could divide the numerator and denominator by 5. That's just for fun. We'll do this on the calculator. 85 divided by 5 is 17, and 100 divided by 5 is 20. So this simplifies to 3 and 17/20. You should always check. We did do one simplification, but there could be more, and we don't consider a fraction simplified unless it's completely simplified, which means the numerator and denominator have no common factors. But looking at 17 and 20, they do not. 17 is prime. It's not divisible by 2 or 5. So this is our final result. In part C, notice we have a negative decimal, and that really doesn't affect us much. We just have to keep the negative on the outside. So we have negative. We're going to write 24, 2 digits to the right of the decimal place, so the 24 is over 100. So that's our original fraction. Now we want to simplify this. Noticing 24 is even. I'm going to keep that negative sign with me along the way. Okay. So I'm going to divide the numerator and denominator by 2. Now you may have noticed they're actually both divisible by 4, but let's just use this 2-5 rule so we can see how we follow each step. So now we have 24 divided by 2 is 12, 100 divided by 2 is 50. Okay. So even if you don't find the greatest common factor, to simplify, it's not the end of the world. You just have to check it again. Notice 12 and 50 are both even, so we can divide by 2 again. I'm going to stretch this division bar out. 12 divided by 2 is 6, and 50 divided by 2 is 25. Now 25 is 2 factors of 5. 6 doesn't have any factors of 5, so our result is negative 6/25. And looking at this last one, it's both negative. It's going to be a mixed number because we have the whole number 4 in there. So we have negative 4. Now, the digits to the right of the decimal point are 076, and we're going to write that as 76. And you may remember this is 76 thousandths. But you can also use the rule where you count the number of digits to the right of the decimal point, 1, 2, 3. That's how many zeros go after the 1. So now we're going to keep the negative, we're going to keep the 4, but we do need to simplify this fraction. I'm noticing 76 is even, so I am going to divide both the numerator and denominator by 2. Let's do this on the calculator. 76 divided by 2 is 38. 1,000 divided by 2 is 500. So we have 38 over 500. So negative 4 and 38 over 500. Notice they're both still even. I'm also noticing that 38 isn't divisible by 5. It doesn't end in a 5 or a 0, so I'm just looking at 2's now. So I can divide each of these 500s also even. I could divide each of these by 2 again. So 38 divided by 2 is 19, and 500 divided by 2 is 250. So now we have negative 4 and 19 over 250. Notice 19 is not even, it's not divisible by 5, so this is our final result.